Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinoski. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
And welcome back. I'm Jim Vinoski with Manufacturing Talks, here live from Detroit, from the American Gear Manufacturers Association Motion and Power Technology Expo, from the floor of Huntington Place, and it has been a day. I am on my last interview and saved the best for last, right, guys?
That's what I think.
So I've got Kika Young and Jared Lyford. They are President, Kika, and Director of Operations, Jared, from Forest City Gear over in Illinois, right?
Yeah, yep. We're just about 5 miles south of the Wisconsin-Illinois border.
Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And we had previously gotten to meet from afar for the article I did about the AGMA, and I was really excited to see you guys as an option for having on here, because I thought that stuff you covered in that article was so very cool. And so I want to dive into that for sure, what all the cool stuff Forest City has going on. But before we do that, let's first hear about you two. So start with you, Kika. What's your background? How'd you get into doing what you're doing with Forest City?
Sure. So Forest City Gear is family owned and operated, and I'm part of the third generation of that family of Forest City Gear. So my grandparents, Stetler and Evelyn, founded Forest City Gear in 1955. My dad took it over in the 60s and ran it for many years. My mom got involved in the early 2000s. And now I'm at the helm. So I'm really proud to be carrying on that family legacy and, hopefully adding to that legacy on a foundation that's already so strong.
Yeah.
So I literally grew up in the company. We'd sit up on the railing upstairs and make paperclip chains to dangle from the railing, and had awesome lemonade stands out front. So it's just, Forest City Gear has always been a part of my life, and I'm really happy and blessed to be able to carry that on now. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then when did you come along, Jared?
There's a couple different parts of that.
Okay.
But initially, I've been in manufacturing my entire career. So since basically about 16 years old, I was in a youth apprenticeship program.
Wow.
That Forest City Gear sponsored.
Oh, wow.
And in doing that got me to know Forest City. So then I spent till about 19 years old, and I decided to move on and become a tool and die maker.
He left us.
So
Wow.
I went through the trade, came back to Forest City in 2004.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, and then I've been back since 2004. Went on, got my business degree while I was back with Forest City, and I've just been fortunate enough to grow with the company. So.
Yep, excellent. So when you were gone and then you came back, what was it that drew you back?
Honestly, it was stability in the company and seeing that in our local economy. I was, again, as a tool maker, so I was in the metal stamping and fabrication side of things. And it's a really interesting story that through 9/11, that's what displaced me from when I left Forest City. Through that, I saw a newspaper article in about early 2004, and it was Fred Young. And it was a newspaper article centered around Fred and talking about just how far out this company is, like the technology is investing in the reinvestment strategy. I saw that in the local paper at the employer I was at, and somebody asked me, "Did you used to work here?" Lo and behold, that got me to go back and re-engage with Forest City. And by complete coincidence, that newspaper article is framed and hanging in my office today.
That is so cool.
So,
wow. Yeah,
Actually,
that's a great
we both
story.
have a copy of that article hanging in our respective offices.
Nice. Yep. So kind of know how you got into the business. It's in your blood. How did you as a youth get to where, like at 16, you were interested in that program?
So I'm glad you asked. The local high schools had a tech academy. So probably 4 or 5 local high schools pooled up, and then you would do an aptitude test through your school to get into this academy. And that academy then was sponsored by about 20 local manufacturers. So then it was junior, senior year of high school. Well, this was a thing where my mom was an RN and my dad was involved in agriculture. Where my mom said, "Well, you're going to do this," because she knew I had a mechanical aptitude.
Yes.
So I tested at the top, got into the program, and then through that apprenticeship program, realized, like, 'cause I always took shop classes, I took things like that. Realized that I had an opportunity, and then started with Forest City. And basically, before I was out of high school, I was touching gears and learning about gears and the manufacture of gears. So I just got into my blood, and it stayed there.
Yeah. So you didn't have it from the family end of things, but it was definitely there in your blood as a young guy.
Well, when you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old and you're tearing all your toys apart and see how they go back together, you're underway to something. You just don't know what it is at that time.
Understood.
Jared has become, in essence, part of our family. I mean, my dad thought of him as his dear son. And, when my dad passed away earlier this year, my dad had asked that Jared, participate in doing the eulogy and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So he is part of the family now in that sense. Yeah.
And I did see the announcement of that. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're right. You have the opportunity to carry on what you built. That's got to be pretty special.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. I mean, Forest City, tell a little bit about the work you do and the businesses you're involved in, customers.
Yeah. So my grandfather, Stetler, was the president of a small gear company in the 40s and into the early 50s called Rhinell Gear out of Sterling, Illinois. And they manufactured some pump gears and some smaller stuff. Rhinell Gear, the family closed the business. And some of those customers approached my grandpa and said, "Hey, we still need some gears." So he was able to borrow some money from some neighbors and friends and put a gear machine in his garage. Okay, so then he's making gears for the manual crank basketball hoops in old gymnasiums. So the gears for those cranks. And then for these little home ice cream makers.
Oh, sure.
So those were our first customers in 1955. Today, we serve over 300 to 350 customers annually. It's important to us to stay diversified, both from a customer standpoint and a industry serve standpoint. So we don't want any one customer to make up more than 10% of our overall annual sales volume. We don't want to be tied too closely to one customer in that way. And we also don't want to be tied to one industry too much. We saw through COVID, the aerospace industry dropped dramatically. We service the aerospace industry. We were able to pick up the lost sales volume from the aerospace drop with some robotics work. But being diversified and having that diversified customer base is very important to us so that we can remain stable for all of our shareholders, for our employees and their families, first and foremost, for our customers, for our vendors.
Excellent. So you make gears.
We make gears.
Are there primary customers that you have had for a long time, or is that a pretty dynamic business?
Gosh, I would say both.
Yeah.
I would say. We just had this conversation internally as we looked at the growth of the company and the trajectory. And to answer that, it is both. We have legacy customers that we've developed and established, but then you get that attrition factor where, some projects, some things change, sourcing changes, but then new work comes to back it up. So, as you look at that, but the players in and out of that mix are largely consistent. So,
now, obviously, you're here at the show as exhibitors, right? What are Forest City's big objectives for this week in Detroit?
So, in my opinion, there are three major reasons for us to be here. First and foremost is customer presence. So, as we have customers from some of our current customer base as well as potential customers walking through, we're here to answer questions, be able to showcase what we can do for them. We also serve a lot of the other folks that are here. So 30% or so of our customer base are either other gear manufacturers or have gear manufacturing capabilities themselves. And they're sending work to us that maybe is outside of their capability range. Maybe they can't measure it, for whatever reasons. Maybe they're not doing their own grinding. So the networking with those folks is also really, really important to us. And then, of course, the machine tool builders who are here checking out the latest and greatest technology. That's a central tenet to what has built Forest City Gear and the legacy of my dad's that Jared is continuing in having a very versatile, dynamic, advanced shop floor as far as technology.
Yeah, it's an interesting and an analogy that I put together with that is always, you look at your business and ours in particular, you reckon it to like a toolbox, if you will, and that toolbox has a series of different tools. Well, that's what we're really selling, right? Is we're selling capability, capacity, and expertise. Right. And so Fred built this business central around kind of a build it and they will come type of thing. And if there's something new and there's something exciting that we think we can leverage and use throughout the industry to better support and provide value to the customer, then that's what we want to know about.
Yeah. And that's come up, as you might imagine, a number of times today. From what you guys do, are you seeing more opportunity when it comes to technology advances in your machinery, or are you seeing more around like work processes and things like that?
Interesting question.
So I think it comes down to where you're looking for the technology. Now, obviously, labor is a constraint for, all.
Nobody else has mentioned that today.
Yeah, I'm sure. So as you look at that labor component of it, then the automation and the efficiency and process and those things come up because you got to mitigate that, right? Yeah. And you have to deal with it. So that's and therein lies a challenge with such a high mix, low volume type of manufacturer that we are. Truly what I like to call the ultimate job shop. And, a gear is a gear is a gear, but no two gears are alike. And, the elements are different. So in the technology and equipment, I think is not plateauing, but you always see this paradigm shift, right? Where the cutting tools get so good and then the equipment has to catch up, and then the equipment gets good and the cutting tools catch up, and the controls are sophisticated, the axis control, the synchronizations are there. So all that stuff has existed. And it's really just trying to marry these things to find that efficiency so you can leverage that, at least in a job shop environment like ours.
Sure. And labor did come up a number of times. How is the situation there in Illinois where you guys are?
So it's not great. Things are starting to loosen up a little bit in our area. We're about 90 miles northwest of Chicago, kind of right in the middle of Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, north of Rockford, Illinois. So it's improving, but it's still a tight labor market, that's for sure. We've recently moved from a second shift to a third shift because we were seeing more interest in people being available and willing to work an off shift that was a third shift versus a second shift. So we were slowly starting to make some new hires for that. And really at the capacity constraints we have, that's where our growth will be. So building that shift is going to be critical for us.
Interesting, yeah. And that's a new one. It makes perfect sense, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about shifting times and things like that for people. But I can certainly see that.
Yeah, it's a little harder on the company, right? Because we're asleep. Okay, right. So if something happens at 4 a.m, somebody's got to take that call.
Yeah, somebody.
I've been in manufacturing my entire career too, so I get it. All in operations.
But employees, folks can be with their family for dinner and after school, and if they have a spouse working a typical 7 to 4, 8 to 5 kind of job, they can go to soccer practice or go to their kids' play and come into work at 10 and still be an integral part of their family's daily dynamic. Where on second shift, you can't do that. So So we saw a lot more people, especially people with younger families who are looking to avoid maybe childcare costs and things like that, who are more interested in that shift. So we are hopeful we'll over time be able to staff it more robustly than we were able to staff second shift.
Yeah.
And I think it better serves families.
Yeah. Got it. As you look at the whole business dynamic, things are a little bit crazy now. What are you seeing as far as the health of the economy, the health of your business? Are you seeing more opportunities? Are you seeing maybe some headwinds coming up? How does that look for you guys and what you do?
Well, that's,
All of the above.
I think that, initially as you're trying to plan, right, I think the interest rates are affecting the economy. So that's really coming into focus for people. I mean, it has, and it is. But as that cost of money is increasing, we're talking about possible expansions. We're looking at what to do with these things. Well, those opportunities are a lot more complicated to have because, you benchmark the cost to build, right? That cost per square foot is twice what it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. So, and then money's more expensive. So, I think those are some headwinds as we're coming into an election year. So there's going to be some kind of pensiveness
volatile before the election.
What's going to happen through that. So I definitely think the next year, short of big projects, big programs, things that are in the push, perhaps the defense spending will come up. There's going to be things like that. I think the next year is going to be kind of a wait and see type of year is what I really think is going to happen for obvious reasons.
And then as you think longer term, you're seeing, some changes in the gear world. Obviously, some different actors out there. The EV thing is going to be a big discussion here this week. And then technologies like 3D printing and different metallurgies. Are you thinking, out beyond that election year? Are there going to be some significant opportunities for Forest City Gear around new customers, around new technologies, around, new ways of doing things?
Well, something that I see and the discussions are coming up is at least where we're playing for the most part. So that quality component, right? The accuracy that they're looking for. We've built a lot of core competency in terms of ODID grind and some machining competencies that, really we've focused on from a CapEx and strategic standpoint over the last, 5 years, I would say. And that segment, that aerospace defense, outer space area that we play predominantly, we see a lot of that. Quality is always a conversation, but not so much quality and the accuracy of the quality, but the requirement, the tolerance requirement is coming up. So I think that's going to be a big differentiator. As processes develop, but cylindrical tolerances and runout tolerances and involute requirements. These tolerances are not relaxing at all. Backlashes and operating environments change. So,
What about? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the quality requirements. So typically we don't do automotive because we're too expensive, too high quality for what would be typical for automotive. We're not TS certified. We have been seeing some RFQs for EV gearing, and I wasn't understanding why there was all the sudden need to have these tighter tolerances and things like that. And he pointed out to me that you don't have the noise of the combustion engine to hide the sound of these clickety-clackety gears.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you want this electric vehicle to drive quiet, soft, smooth. You have to have much higher precision gearing in those gearboxes than you had to when it was underneath the combustion engine.
Right.
So, which that was very interesting to me because I just didn't put it together.
What about space? Now it seems like there's a lot coming up around. We want to get to the moon and then pretty short term, and to Mars in the not too distant future. And I know that's a place you guys have played pretty heavily. Do you see new opportunities coming down in that end of the business?
Oh, yeah, we do. We see a lot in the engine sides in space. So, there's a couple of everybody's favorite entrepreneurs that are, funding the space race. So,
Right, yes.
we know who they are. But, we see a lot of participation in the engines. We're seeing a lot of actuator fluid controls, those sort of things. And, even in communication satellites and the like. So, yeah, there's I think that piece of it is we're just on the beginning.
Yeah.
The entire supply chain,
Yeah.
not just Forest City. So
Yeah. Year over year, outer space has been our biggest growth sector for
Good. Yeah.
years now.
yeah, definitely.
I know for me, when we talked previously, the coolest thing that I heard was about you guys having gears on the Mars rover.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
phenomenal. Now, you hear quite a bit about new rovers for the moon, for Mars, and then new stuff in outer space as well. Do you see things coming down that we aren't even thinking about? We all have the picture of the rover in our head. We all have the picture maybe of the International Space Station, but there's all these small satellites now, Starlink, all these
Right.
different things out there. Are you seeing stuff that those of us in the normal world maybe aren't even
Yeah.
aware
So
of?
if we were,
Yeah,
of course, those things would be under strict
You could,
NDA protection.
you could tell me, but you'd have to kill me.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But-
There is a lot of cool growth happening.
Yeah,
We
so
can
that's
say
what I was
that.
after,
Yeah.
is generally
Yeah.
speaking, there's going to be more
Oh,
opportunities.
Yeah.
definitely.
Excellent. Yep. We're getting close. I have a little more time to talk business, but before we finish up, I definitely want to hear about you two and what you do for fun. So
Well,
I know you run a company.
I do run a
So
company.
I know there's not a lot of time, but Kika, why
Yeah.
don't you
So,
start us off?
in my free time, all of my free time,
Yeah.
because I have 3 young children.
Well, you can just stop.
Yeah. So I have 3 kids. So that's it. I have 3 kids and I run a company, and that's my entire life. Unfortunately, don't tell my kids, but they are now getting old enough where they have hobbies and interests
Mhm.
that supersede mine.
Yes. Yep.
So soccer practice and football practice and this club and that club and camp, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, my garden's dying out there,
Yep.
So
I understand.
I might have hobbies again. Talk to me in 10 years.
My 2 boys are now 18 and 15,
Okay.
and I've had the last couple of summers have been the best bicycling summers I've had in quite some time.
Okay.
So, the time does come where your time will be back, but then they're off doing their own thing.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. How about you, Jared?
No, I have no children except my family. We do have a Shih Tzu and a miniature Schnauzer, so don't judge me on that.
I do.
They are kind of the center point of things. But we most of my free time is spent between. I will say this: I am a bowler, so I grew up bowling.
Cool.
So that was something my dad got me into when I was about 5 years old. So
This is not a casual hobby for
yeah,
him.
I do take that fairly
A
seriously.
serious bowl.
So
Yeah.
yep. So that's a little known fact that now is out there. But,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. All our
All
friends
over the
out
world.
there. But so between that, work, family, and the Shih Tzu and the Schnauzer, we're doing pretty good.
Keeping busy.
Yeah, busy.
Good. Is there anything about your company you guys have going on that we haven't talked about that I should know? That we should know?
Oh, man.
I think we've.
Talk a little bit about CMMC or NDT.
Yeah. So we're as the cybersecurity requirements become more stringent. NIST 800, 171, and then CMMC. So we made a initiative to make a push to be kind of an early adopter of CMMC. Now, obviously, that has taken shape, right? It was 5 levels of compliance, and now it's 3. And so as that gets zeroed in, and now they're setting up to do the accreditation auditing to become CMMC accredited at a particular level, we've made it a serious attempt to be compliant. So, we have our NIST 800 171 self-assessment score that aligns us with CMMC level 2 requirements. We're finalizing policies. So we're well positioned, and we're starting to see that from our customers, where they're wanting to see that, where are you at on the CMMC maturity path and journey. And then, that's exciting, if you want to call it that. It's a challenge and a hurdle,
you
but
stay ahead of,
yep,
right?
something you have to stay ahead of. And then furthermore, we've gotten our first NADCAP accreditation for magnetic particle inspection.
Oh, yeah.
So for some non-destructive testing.
Yeah.
And now we are working on our Nidal etch, NADCAP and Nidal etch as well. So surface temper etch for grinding burn detection. So we hoping first quarter next year, we're able to roll that up. And then that's, we're going to offer that once we get on the ASL for our prime customers. Then what we're going to do is we'll leverage that into lead time, et cetera, et cetera. So material handling, safety risk mitigation, that sort of thing. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Excellent. More opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Good deal. Well, so I think my day is done.
All right.
We're happy to have ended it so well with
you guys ended it extremely well. Save the best for last. Don't tell anyone else I said that. But yeah, it has been wonderful being here. Thank you too.
Thanks for
sharing
having
the
us.
story of Forest City Gears, and good luck on all your future space endeavors and everything else.
And everything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, as always, thank you, our listeners and viewers. We're done from here in Detroit at the American Gear Manufacturers Association Motion and Power Technology Expo. Finished my day. We are going to wrap up and head out to Detroit before too long. Not everyone, because the show's going on for a couple more days, but that's what I'm doing. So as always, the normal show is here every Tuesday, so look for future episodes. Look for everything I was live with today. We'll have recordings out on the YouTube channel here in the next couple of days. So again, thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jim.
We are done here in Detroit from Huntington Place. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Benoski. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.